The way I look at e-commerce, everything comes down to essentially three variables. It's either, traffic or visitors, it's the rate at which those people convert, and its average order value.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook presented by Quad and Web Future Studio. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 110, and my guest is David Kost. David is the head of digital and e-commerce at Rainbow Shops, one of the largest retailers in the U.S. that many have not heard of. David has a long history in technology and e-commerce and has been heavily involved with many industry providers. He's constantly pushing into new features and functionality within their digital business. David brings some great insights for your business, so enjoy the show. Before we get started, a quick thank you as always to Max Brandstetter of the Wow Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook podcast. Today, I'm joined by David Kost. David is the digital leader at Rainbow Shops, an omnichannel fast fashion retailer with over 1,000 stores across the United States, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Rainbow offers a wide selection of women's, plus size, and children's clothing, as well as shoes and accessories. Think TJ Maxx meets Forever 21. With decades of experience working on the internet since the late 90s, David has been an early adopter and beta tester for many e-commerce technologies, partnering with companies like Attentive, Bloomreach, and Salesforce Commerce Cloud. He co-founded one of the early price comparison shopping sites, PriceScan.com. David has served as a strategic advisor to leading brands and platforms, including Shopify, Attentive, and Salesforce. He's a frequent speaker at industry events such as Commerce Next, Signified Flow, and eTail East, sharing his expertise on the latest digital commerce trends and strategies. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
We are getting ready. We're recording here in November of 2024. We're post-election. We're getting ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holiday. Are you guys ready?
I think we're ready. We've got a few more things in code we're trying to get done before we hit code freeze. But I think overall we're in a better place than we might have thought. We've gotten some more projects done than we thought might not make it across the finish line.
Okay, good. For those that listen to this show regularly, we always start with getting the guest's first story, kind of where they grew up, what they did early in their career, something that might have influenced the career trajectory that they've had. Is there something in your past that would have said you'd be a technologist and an e-commerce digital guy?
Technology, yes. E-commerce, I don't think so. I think that came along later. So I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, 2,000 people, one traffic light. My father was a pharmacist and ran the local pharmacy. So, a real kind of small town story. I got out of the town, went to college, came out, did consulting. So kind of my career's been kind of split in thirds. I spent kind of the first third doing consulting. I spent the middle third. I co-founded a price comparison site called PriceScan. And then kind of spent this last third, taking kind of what we learned from PriceScan and now applying it to the retail side. But kind of the one thread that goes through all three of those things has been technology. So I was pretty lucky to be in college at the time that PCs were coming out, and I've kind of ridden that technology wave from then through now.
Good story. So you did get your start in your career at Grant Thornton on the consulting side. What were you thinking that would do for your career, that kind of start? What were you hoping to gain out of that?
I mean, it was a unique opportunity. So I went to Wharton undergraduate. Grant Thornton only hired MBAs with one exception. They hired one undergraduate a year. So it was a way to do MBA level work, straight out of college. So that was kind of the opportunity. And it did kind of play out that way. So it was a great first job. I really enjoyed it. And I think, what I learned through doing consulting for 10 plus years has really helped everything I've done after that.
How so?
I think it's a certain perspective. So in those days, when we were doing technology consulting, companies would tend to have some IT expertise, but they didn't know anything about the emerging, personal computer, network personal computers, all of that. So we were coming in not the friendliest situation, right? They saw us as the outsider who had a skill that they didn't have. And I think we constantly had to prove ourselves. So as we would write software, develop certain solutions, they were always ready to point the finger at us. And so, we developed when somebody brings something up, you spend all the time to make sure that it's not you. You take every report seriously, you debug it, and you have to be careful that you've got the right documentation to show it's not your problem, it's theirs.
So you moved from Grant Thornton to another consulting shop called Systems Design Group, and it's interesting. You broke your career up into a third, a third, a third. You've had long stints in most of the places that you have been. Today when I talk to people that are much earlier in their career, they're thinking about 1 or 2 years wherever they are, and then they're on to the next thing. So you've had a different path.
It takes time to develop skills and expertise. And I think, both PriceScan, which was an entrepreneurial startup, and, really what I've now done on the retail side, it takes time to build an organization. You could get something done in a year or two, but not the same that you could get done, over a 10-year arc. I look at Rainbow. I mean, when I came in, they're still fulfilling with a 3PL, right? We stood up our first fulfillment center. And then 2 years after that, we outgrew that fulfillment center. We opened another one. So those things kind of play out over time. And it's been nice to be able to start with, at least in the last 2/3 of my career, very small teams and then build them out to a kind of a nice size over time.
I want to come back to Rainbow, the billion-dollar retailer that nobody knows, which we were talking about. But let's go back to PriceScan.com and the business that you founded. What was the void, the problem in the market that you felt like you were going to try and solve for?
So, I mean, this is the late 90s. The internet's really just getting started. I really felt like this was going to be the next, it would be as if you were opening a television station when TV was invented. That the internet was going to be something big, and if we could get a flag planted, we would be able to ride it for a nice career. On the consulting side, kind of one of the last things I did was we did some work around prescription drug pricing. So if you show doctors, this is one of the fascinating things. Doctors have no idea what drugs cost. So this was back in the 80s, 90s. And they didn't know if there was a functional equivalent drug that was much less expensive, that was even an option. So we built a system on a compact tablet at the time, right? This is before Apple tablets, that as they were writing, it was an electronic prescription pad. So as they were writing a script, it would show them functionally equivalent drugs and their relative prices, no pressure, and the doctor could self-modify the behavior. They did a study on this in a local hospital, and it would save like $300 million a year and not affect patient care whatsoever. So that turned out not to quite work out because of the hot potato of insurance and, who has the financial incentive to save that money. But we kind of took that. That's where I kind of got the price comparison bug. And then we said, as the internet started, right, and technology was changing so quickly, and maybe you remember it, there was a publication called Computer Shopper,
Yeah, sure.
almost like the Yellow Pages that came out every month, right? And customers or clients would ask, I need to buy a new printer for home. What should I buy? What should I pay for it? And so you would sit with that computer shopper and look through all the various ads, and you'd kind of you'd make a table of what those prices were. And we said, geez, what if we could put all this stuff in a database, put it on the internet, and now before you go buy any item, you could do an instant price comparison. Who would shop without that? And so that was where that idea came from. we were pretty early in the process, went through kind of several variations of that business. Ultimately saw, we were one of the largest buyers of Google Ads, back in the old days, and knew that Google could clearly see who could afford to buy the ads. It was only a matter of time before they got into the price comparison game and thought that, okay, they're going to give it away for free until they drive everybody out of the market, and then they're going to charge an arm and a leg for it, which is essentially what's happened. There's more to the story. So we then pivoted. My partner in that business has a PhD in finance from Wharton, and we created financial indexes based on changes in retail prices. So just like a farmer doesn't put a seed for corn in the ground without knowing what he can sell corn for at the end, would Panasonic build a flat panel TV plant if they couldn't know what they could sell the TV for at the end? So we did, we built these financial indexes, we published them with Bloomberg. So they were available on the Bloomberg terminals. And we were about to launch an exchange to trade derivatives based on changes in retail prices. And then the 2007 financial bubble burst. Derivatives became a bad word, and that was pretty much the end of that. Took what I had learned over the 14 years of doing price scan. Really we saw e-commerce grow truly from its infancy up through something that was getting more mature. We saw what worked and what didn't work, right? Because we sold sales leads to all of those early e-com players, and said, okay, now it's time to take it to the retail side. Let's see what I can do. And that's how I got to Deb Shops, and then ultimately got to Rainbow.
You figure it out in technology, and then you say, I'm going to go do something easy. I'm going to go into the fashion business. So you mentioned the Deb Shops. How did you end up there?
Really just luck. I think Deb Shops, so again, not dissimilar to Rainbow, family-owned business. They had sold out to private equity kind of at the top of the market in, what was that, 2009, something like that. Private equity came in, levered the company up. They were a mall-based retailer in that teen to 20 something fashion space. The thing that people remember Deb Shops for, I think most, is the place where they went to buy their prom dress. It was the place if you lived in, they were in 300 malls around the country when prom was a bigger deal than it is today, and a fancier where you wear something more like a ball gown. Deb Shops was the place that middle America went to buy their prom dress.
And before Amazon was a place where you could buy it for a lot less money.
Correct. Correct.
So your role at Deb Shops was?
So I came in the middle of a prepackaged bankruptcy. So they had an e-com business that wasn't growing. It had lots of issues, and my task was to come in and figure out how to turn it around. They were on GSI Commerce as their e-com platform, and I think GSI also did their fulfillment. We used the bankruptcy to break that contract. We did a quick bake-off, decided on Demandware, brought Demandware in. We brought fulfillment in-house. So we had space in our fulfillment center for brick and mortar, brought that in-house, and in 3 months went from GSI to a full Demandware site with in-house fulfillment. And then, proceeded to take that business from, a tiny number to a big number. But, ultimately at the end wasn't enough to save it from its brick and mortar problems.
You talk about replatforming from GSI to Demandware. You're obviously, very well entrenched in the industry and understanding, who the players are that are out there. But just quickly talk about replatforming. It feels like most everybody that's running an e-commerce business hates the platform that they're on and wishes that they were on some other platform. But the thought of moving platforms makes most people a little queasy. So, what's your take on the current state of the available e-commerce platforms that are out there?
I have survived two replatforming. So I survived the GSI to Demandware move that in retrospect that one was not that hard. And Demandware at the time was the hot platform. It really put us in a great position, a much better position than we were on GSI. And that was the right move. At Rainbow, I guess it's now about 3 years ago, we moved from Demandware/Salesforce to Shopify. That was a much harder replatforming. And look, like I think maybe you make a replatforming decision once every 10 years or so. And then you live with it within that 10-year period. I mean, again, in our case, it was the right move, I think, at the right time. So again, they're not easy, but they are sometimes necessary.
Yeah. Is there one or two things? Are there one or two things that you would, let people know about when you make the decision to replatform, something that you should make sure that you do or that you don't do?
I mean, look, I think you need to have a very clear reason for why you're moving. And it can't just be that you think something has some new widget, whatever. The way I look at e-commerce, everything comes down to essentially three variables. It's either, traffic or visitors, it's the rate at which those people convert, and it's average order value. Whatever you're going to spend money on has to move one of those variables, or it's got to save you money from an expense standpoint in a significant way on where you currently are. We built a strong case to make that move. We thought that Shopify's checkout was superior to Demandware or Salesforce at the time. It was significantly less expensive, so there was going to be a big expense savings. We thought that they were the technological leader so that, new things that came out would come out for Shopify first, like we had experienced in the early days of Demandware. So for all of those reasons, we got organizational buy-in to do that replatforming. But again, not for the faint of heart. Much, much harder to do the bigger your organization is and the longer you've been doing this, I think the harder it is to pull off one of those replatforming projects.
Are you among the lucky one-third of marketers who say their efforts are very effective? Or are you like the rest of us who struggle with day to day complexities that make it tough to deliver real business value? Quad partnered with Harvard Business Review Analytics Services to find out why today's marketers feel so overwhelmed and what to do about it. Head over to quad.com/HBR to read the report. We both sit on an advisory board, customer advisory board for Attentive. What do you make today? Companies trying to become, Attentive started out as a SMS provider, and now they are an ESP and SMS provider. Bluecore, was a trigger email company, and now they're an ESP and also do SMS. There's a lot of this. Let's do it all under one roof. The one thing I like is the one throat to choke. So, what do you make of or the jockeying in the marketplace?
I think we're in a period of consolidation. I think the days of having, multiple, vendors that specialized in one thing and one thing only, I think those days are behind us. I think the efficiencies that we can gain from consolidating and the technical simplification that we get from consolidating is going to really push that, right? Like, I think we're in a period now where there is no easy growth, right? So we're fighting for business every day. Expenses become more and more important. So if we can do something more efficiently, that's as much of a win as if we get an additional sale. And the complication of having to debug and maintain shopping cart abandonment, alert messages, signups, all of this infrastructure for an email vendor, for an SMS vendor, and we have push for our native apps for our push vendor. Doing that 3 times, there is just no good reason to do it. If we could do it once and with only one vendor, it would be superior to doing it 3 times. I think the whole concept of the CDPs and the CDPs were going to be the magic glue that we're going to let you have separate vendors, but then do orchestration or coordination across them. I don't know. I don't think it's ever really quite worked out. They're expensive. And I never meet anybody that's so thrilled with their CDP that they would do it again. So I think, as we see an attempt to consolidate email, SMS, and again, we are advocating strongly that they add push to that mix. Their ability, they become a CDP light and give us a centralized place to do marketing communication. That's what I think the future is. So I think this is a race to, as we consolidate, I think you get Klaviyo at the small end of the market, you've got Attentive at the high end, and they're going to race to the middle. And a lot of these single players, I think, are going to get squeezed out in the next couple of years.
You mentioned CDP. For some clients that I've got, we've been talking CDP. Now, the problem is that, there are hundreds of folks out there that layer in the letters CDP into their decks about what they do. To you, what does CDP really mean?
I mean, look, what we've been asking for, I swear it's at least 10 years now, for a given customer, right? I can communicate with them via email, SMS, or push. Those are the three main ways today I have to talk to them. We know from lots of things, whether it's social media, we know it from our native apps versus the website. Customers have their own channel preferences. They just do, right? There are people who love Facebook. There are people who love Instagram. Some people are TikTok first. They may be Pinterest first, whatever it is. They've got their preference, and it's very hard to move them from one bucket to another. So what do I want to do? Anytime I want to send a marketing message, I want to maximize reach and minimize cost, right? I want to get it to the most people I can get it to for the least amount of money I can. So push is essentially free, right? Once you build your native apps, there's no incremental cost in sending push. So if I know you've got our app installed and that you've enabled push, when I want to send a message, that's the best place to send it. If I send you email, I mean, we've looked at customers that have purchased from us 20 times and have never opened a single email, not once, not a transactional message, not a marketing message, not at all.
They've bought in store or online or both.
We can only see online. So we know they bought online 20 times, never opened an email. Okay, so maybe that's a person I need to overweight SMS to, right? But unless I have some central place to see that individual customer and to let, you're talking about applications of machine learning or AI, I want it to figure out, okay, what's the best way for me to reach you? That it can see over time what messages you open, click on, what you act on, and it can figure out what channel that message needs to go out on. And maybe the format of that message needs to be different based on which channel it's going, it's being delivered over. So that's ultimately what we'd like to see someone like an Attentive build. But that was to me always the promise of the CDPs. Every time we go down that CDP road, it seems to be because the vendors in the past didn't want to play nice with one another and share information. It always hamstrung the CDP, right? The CDP can only do what the various other pieces of tech you have share with them. And if they don't share in the right way, then it hampers the whole effort. If it's all coming from one vendor, I don't have to worry about the cross vendor sharing, right? They can do it all. So I don't know. That's the dream we have. We'll see if anybody ever builds it.
Without geeking out too much here, you mentioned, I think I heard you say that you can only see online. So does that mean that you don't have ability to connect what's happening in store to customers that are shopping online?
Unfortunately, that is true. So we have a point of sale system that's 20 plus years old. We don't store any credit card data, on any store transactions. We don't have an email address or any other kind of identifier, with those. So we really have no way to see. Now, that's been for my almost 10 years here. So let's talk about new developments. So a couple weeks ago, and this was a project that took way longer than it should have, but it's having some real payoff. We've now delivered that you can buy online and pick up your order in stores. So we ship it to a store. Now we're not doing fulfillment from stores. So it's still coming out of our ecom warehouse, but is being delivered to a store. And because the economics of the delivery are different, we can essentially offer free shipping to store, no threshold.
And you're driving traffic to your stores with the intention, hopefully, I imagine, that they buy something else while they're in store.
That's correct. Look, we all know your absolute best customer is somebody who buys in multiple channels. So a customer who buys online and in store is better than one that buys just exclusively. We know we're driving the best people we have into stores. That's been live like 2.5 weeks. It's now 30% of transactions.
Wow.
Almost 1 in 3 transactions is going ship to store, way bigger than we ever expected or thought it would be.
Can the stores handle that volume?
With 1,000 stores, it's okay. Like, when you spread it out, it's not been an issue. But now I think the organization is getting its first taste of how integrated this customer really is. And there will be now more willingness to make some other investments that maybe there wasn't in the past. Like, I always feel retailers erect these silos and walls the customers have no idea exist, right? The customer sees rainbow. They have no idea that there's any difference between brick and mortar and online, right? They just see the brand. Yet we treat them like they're two entirely separate, different things. And I think, it's education for both sides to realize it is one and the same customer. And it's your goal to make it easy for them to transact on whatever channel they want and let them move back and forth between them.
One of the things about this podcast is we try to give the listener three key takeaways to take back to their personal or professional lives. You're making this very easy for me because there's a number of really good takeaways here. But let's talk about Rainbow. So my memories of Rainbow Shop. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and my mother used to drag me on Kings Highway in East Second Street. There was a big Rainbow store on the corner. And every once in a while, I found myself in there sitting under a rack of ladies' clothes because I had nothing else to do while she was shopping. So, Rainbow today, for those that don't know it, give us a quick perspective on size, scope, and demographic of your shopper.
So we're over 1,000 stores. I think so. If you've been in a TJ Maxx, it's a similar format. It's a big open box with rounders, with, clothing, just there's no gap. I mean, you're struggling to walk through that store and customers come in and go on a treasure hunt. So, it is true fast fashion. We roughly launch 100 master styles a day and 100 styles sell out. So it's a constant churn of product in the stores. When something sells out, it's gone forever and gets replaced by something else. That's the general setup. We've had an online business for, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. So we were later to the e-commerce game than a lot of other people. But there are people in our space like a Primark that, they've said they can't do e-commerce because they can't, their margins are too slim to support the shipping of the goods. So I think, one of the things that our founders kind of, understood early on was that owning fulfillment, right, which is a big expense and a big complication, was going to be crucial to our ability to thrive kind of in the online world. And it's really played out that way. Every time we look at alternatives, if we look at trying to use, Amazon's fulfillment services, they're 4 or 5 times what we do it for.
Interesting. You're heavy into technology. Are there some technologies, without, wanting to kind of subscribe to the shiny object syndrome? Are there some things that you're looking at next year that are interesting to you?
I tell you, the one thing that we've implemented this year, and we continue to kind of go down the path with this company. It's a company called Blotout. It's BLOTOUT.io. I'm going to try to give you the simple elevator pitch, right? So in a world where cookies are getting more restricted every day, right? And there's the threat that cookies go away at some point. What they're really talking about are third-party cookies, not first-party cookies. So nobody's threatening to take away the cookie that you need to run your website. What they're saying is we don't want a bunch of third-party cookies grabbing all this data, unbeknownst to the user. So on a Safari browser, a first-party cookie lives for 20 years. A third-party cookie lives for 7 days. What Blotout is essentially doing is saying, okay, we're going to give you the technology to generate a first-party cookie, to collect whatever data you need, and then via API server to server on the backend side, share that out with whatever third parties you have. So now you've essentially bypassed the cookie restriction, right? And you're controlling what gets written, where it gets written. I'll give you like a specific example. In terms of Meta and our Meta advertising, Because Blot Out is integrated with Shopify, it knows whether a transaction is from a new customer or an existing customer. It can put that dollar in two separate fields, share that with Meta. So now Meta doesn't just see that a transaction happened, but they know whether it's a new customer or existing. And then you can use that to further, the Meta algorithm to whether you're looking to drive, more new business or more repeat business. This is additional data that wouldn't be available in the standard Meta cookie. They're also doing, cart recovery. So, in Demandware, we were kind of spoiled. The cart was persistent for at least a year, right? In Shopify, that's not the case, right? That cart goes away in like 7 days. Blot Out, we just launched it 2 days ago, can recover carts for any period of time. So in our first, I don't know, half a day out of the chute, we had 700 carts recovered, via their technology that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And so now this, brings another way we can take some of the friction out of the checkout and kind of the shopping experience, to further supplement, even what we get, out of the box with Shopify.
Good stuff. We're going to have to do part two of David Cost on the marketing playbook. Are you an online retailer or brand looking to enhance your product imagery? Look no further than Web Future Studio, your trusted partner for professional image editing services tailored to your needs. At Web Future Studio, we combine expert image editing with a personalized customer approach. We understand the fast-paced nature of e-commerce, which is why we pride ourselves on delivering top-quality images while meeting tight deadlines. Our team is dedicated to bringing value to your brand by perfecting your visuals, from regular product photos to compelling marketing images that captivate your audience. What sets us apart is our commitment to customization. We offer optimized and tailored cost structures that suit your specific needs and budget, ensuring you receive the best service without unnecessary costs. Join the many US-based clients who have trusted us to refine their product images and boost their online presence. Ready to make your images stand out? Contact Web Future Studio today to discuss how we can bring your vision to life. Visit webfuturestudio.com to get started. This was really good, David. Thank you. We're down to the end of the show. We do a 2-minute drill, 7 questions, 1-word answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. A brand that you admire or that inspires you?
SpaceX.
Favorite app on your phone?
Waze.
Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from?
Huckberry.
Something that you're not good at but wish that you were?
I wish I was a super taster.
Charitable organization that you're passionate about?
My local food bank.
And if you had one superpower, what would it be?
Would love to be able to eliminate food insecurity.
Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
My home.
Fantastic. David, if people want to reach out to you on social media, what's the best place?
I think LinkedIn is the best place.
Okay. David, thank you very, very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Good insights for the listeners. Best of luck to you this holiday season. Have a happy new year. And I can't believe we're talking about New Year already. Actually, it was 70 degrees here in New Jersey this week. So, anyway, thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to David Cost for coming on the marketing playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, it takes time to build a good team. Be patient. Map out the perfect structure for your organization and then attempt to fill those slots with the best talent that you can find. It gets complicated when you already have people in place that might no longer fit the requirements of your business, but make the tough decisions. Do not try to keep people in roles that you can sense they will not be successful in. It's not good for them nor your business. Number 2, replatforming is not for the faint of heart. I think that was David's quote. It does feel like nobody likes the e-commerce platform that they're on, but do really think long and hard about the reasons you want to make a change. These projects are costly, time-consuming, and without a well-thought-out plan, you might not be any better off on the new platform. Also, don't have your team that already has a day job take this on their own. Seek outside help to minimize business disruption. And number 3, let customers shop where they want and how they want to, but be committed to giving them a consistent experience. Serve the customers, not the channels. People have preferences of how to shop your brand, so make it easy for them, regardless of whether they want to shop in store or online, or if they want to get to your site through email, SMS, push notifications, or any of the major forms of paid media. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.